The first thing which you saw was Tantra related to Buddhism.
Yes.
And how did you come to this Vamachara kind of Tantra?
Well, so this saintly gentleman from Hyderabad was very much he was not in the Vamachara side. He was very much more conventional kind of practice of various adhyatmak vishayas. And so, the general opinion, and to some degree it's still the same, it's true even today, the general opinion is that, Tantra and Jadu Tona, they're all the same thing. And if you meet someone who's a tantric, you should make sure that you stay far away, because who knows what kind of...
and in the West, it has got a different meaning.
In the West, it's all about, nobody even thinks about black magic because they have no clue, but they think a lot about sex. So, but and it is true. So we had, there's all kinds of acharyas who get off into, they become attracted by so many things, and attracted by, the main thing is you're attracted by Shakti, because Tantra is all about Shakti. Tantra is all about becoming familiar with and gaining enough Shakti to be able to do things. The word Tantra comes from tan, which is a root, the Sanskrit root that means to weave. So you're creating a reality, whatever reality you're creating. It can be any kind of reality. There's all kinds of different tantras. Tantra is not a religion. It's just a method. It says if you want to do this, you can. One way you can do this is you do this and this and this, and you'll get the result. So the thread that you use for Tantra is the mantra. And the loom that you use to weave the cloth is the yantra, whatever kind of yantra you're using. And you have to do it, if you're weaving, there's a certain procedure you have to do. So, and similarly, there is the actual, you have to follow a certain procedure, and then you get the result. So there are Buddhist tantras and Jaina tantras, and there just as easily could be Christian or Muslim tantras if there was some acharya who decided he wanted to go in that way. It's not sectarian at all. But at the beginning, everybody told me, stay away from tantrics, they're very dangerous. So I thought, that's what I will do. I'll stay away from them. But so I was studying in Pune, and back then it was not expensive to live in Bharatavarsha and to study. And I had some money, but I realized I would need more money. So I applied to the US government, and I got a grant to do a report on Ayurveda and how it was being practiced in Pune. And so in order to do that, I had to interview a number of different Vaidyas and people involved with making Ayurvedic medicines and people involved with, and Ayurveda there's not just one parampara of Ayurveda. There's the general sort of parampara that the texts relate to, because the texts were created for Vaidyas who were going to treat the elites of society. So they're meant for a professionalized group of Vaidyas. But there are many other traditions in which Ayurvedic knowledge has been passed down. And some of them, I am sure, still exist. Many of them are not particularly well known. There was one in Maharashtra, knowledge of specific vanaspatis that could be used for treating children when they had childhood diseases. And in Maharashtra, that used to be called, or there may still be people using it, but it was called Aji Sa Batwa. Aji means grandmother. Batwa means purse. So Aji would have a purse on the wall with a bunch of vanaspatis in it, jadi buti. And then when little whoever became unwell, she would concoct some very foul-tasting thing and pour it down.
Homemade medicine.
Homemade medicine, and often the child would be better. So that was a tradition that passed down that way. There are other traditions that have been passed down in families. In fact, there is a tradition of bone setting. I cannot sadly remember the name of I was on a train once between Tirupati and Chennai. And in between the two, I was sitting opposite a flight surgeon from the Indian Air Force. And we were chatting about this and that. And he pointed out this station, whose name I can't remember, but it was more or less right in between the two. And he said that in this town, there is a family that they do nothing but set bones. Oh. And he said, my own mother had a fracture that would not heal. And this is a surgeon we're talking about. And the surgeons had done everything they could. And finally, he heard about this place. He took her there, and within a few weeks, it was perfectly fine. And of course, he wanted to know, and they said, no, this is our rahasya, and we're going to hold on to it. So there's all kinds of this stuff. This is a very unusual desh here. And so I was meeting all kinds of people, and I heard from the professor of Sanskrit in the college, who was helping me find people to interview, that someone who was a tantric, but who had also been well trained in Ayurveda by Tirambakam Shastri of Kashi, of Benares, would be coming to Pune because he owned racehorses. Yeah. And then I thought, oh my God, he is a tantric and he owns racehorses. He must be a very dangerous person. But no, I thought, no, I must go and interview him because I must interview everybody. So I went to interview him, and I had a questionnaire. I said, please, can I ask you these questions? He said, yeah, I'll look at it sometime. So he gave it to the teenager who was living in the house where this was in Pune, not far from where the college hostel was. And he said to her, give it to me later and I'll look at it. She put it on top of the refrigerator and totally forgot. And I still am in touch with her. She lives in the United States now. But we're talking about 51 years ago. So she put it on top of the refrigerator. And over the next couple of days, he answered all the questions. So I thought he must have looked at them. Then I find out that it is still on top of the refrigerator and he has not seen it. So then I start to think that maybe there is something there that is more interesting.
Some divine play.
And so now I'm very interested in what's going on. And after maybe 2 weeks after I've met him, and he's coming and going from Bombay because I ended up spending 10 years helping to manage his horses. So I learned quite a bit about the RWITC, the Royal West India Turf Club. And they race in Bombay from November until about April. And then, of course, in the Garmi, the ground is too hard. And in the Barsat, the racetrack is very near the sea, so there's too much water, so they race in Pune. And so a couple of weeks, he kept coming and going every week pretty much, because the race meetings would be on the weekends usually. And he invited me to come with him to Arlandi. Now, Arlandi is 21 kilometers from Pune, from the GPO. And it's the place where Dnyaneshwar Maharaj is from. And so now, if you go to Arlandi, there's a big road that goes through it, and there's all kinds of people, and you can barely even get in and have darshan. But back then, okay, you wouldn't go there on Makar Sankranti, and there are a couple of other days. But otherwise, there was no one there. And so we'd go and we'd get Vinayak Rao, I can't remember his last name, is our pujari. Vinayak was always the pujari. And we would go in there, and we would actually sit and do puja to the stone that was on top of where Dnyaneshwar Maharaj is. He took Jivan Samadhi, and so on top of where his Samadhi was identified, they put a stone so people could worship him without interfering with him. And so now I'm learning, and I had been to Alandi once before, so I was already familiar with Alandi and with Dnyaneshwar Maharaj. But when we would do the abhishek with milk, there was some very weird writing on top of the stone. And so Vimalanandaji said, Dnyaneshwar Maharaj, or whoever wrote this, it was Eknath Maharaj actually, who put the stone there. If you can read what's there and follow that prayoga, you can become a siddha yourself. That would be very great. He said, yeah, but without knowing the lipi, without knowing, how are you going to read it? I said, well, that's a problem, isn't it? He said, yes, that is a problem. So knowledge is sitting right there. Lakshmi padi paas hai, batke ko sazar. So there is the knowledge, but you can't get to it. So this
which lipi was it?
I don't know. Oh. I still don't know, because you would think, okay, it could be Granthi or it could be Brahmi or something. No, it was some weird kind of thing, probably that had been created specifically for the knots.
But it's kept open for all.
But it's kept open, because this is the best way. If you have some kind of secret, you should absolutely leave it open, because nobody can do anything with it. So they will look at it and they will think, there is no mahatva in it, and they will go away, and everybody will be happy, including especially Dnyaneshwar Maharaj. So after going there, and we did a homa, a havan, and it was during an eclipse. I think it was a lunar eclipse. And so some unusual things happened. And so I started to realize that there were all kinds of interesting things that existed that you could probably live in India for several janmas and never have any idea about, unless somebody was there to show you. So then I started spending more time with him, and then I started learning more things.
And the mighty lineage of Kinaram Baba chose you.
Well, I don't think that Vimalanandaji would regard himself as being in the lineage of Kinaram Baba. He respected Kinaram Baba, and he would do avesh of Kinaram Baba frequently.
Okay.
But he didn't ever believe, in fact, he would always say that he did not believe in sampradaya.
Okay.
He believed in sampradaha, meaning jalalo, everything. Anything that is interfering with perceiving reality in its completely nirguna fashion, you should burn down. Now, this didn't mean that he was a total, that he followed only the path of jnana. Because he said, number one, in Kali Yuga, following the path of jnana is not really, it's almost impossible, because there's so much akarshan from the external world that you can claim, and we see this happening, Neo-Vedantins all the time. They're saying, yes, I am the supreme reality. Yeah, it's fine until somebody drops a rock on your foot, and then, okay, maybe you're not the supreme reality, because you realize that you were still in a sharira. So, and he also said that, of course, bhakti is much better than jnana, because jnana is rasahina, and bhakti is rasavanta. And the whole point, I mean, if you read, anyone who has heard of Dnyaneshwara probably has heard of the Bhavarta Deepika, which most people call the Dnyaneshwari, which is his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, which is absolutely great, the best commentary. But there's another, and he wrote 3 or 4 things. The Changdev Pashashti, the 65 verses to Yogi Raj Changdev, but also the Amritanubhava. And the Amritanubhava is just, it's right from the beginning, you have the name, Amrita Anubhava. So what does he mean? Does he mean the experience of Amrita, or does he mean that by obtaining Amrita you will have a different, it's like
maybe like crossing death.
It could also be like the experience of crossing. So it's two words that come together. And the first chapter, even if you don't read the whole thing, read the first chapter, because it talks about how Shiva and Shakti work together and how you can't describe what they are, and because they're two lamps, but actually only one flame, and they're two different bodies, but actually only one reality. And when she is awake, he's in
sleep,
in Samadhi, and when he is awake, she is completely lean with him. So it's just such a beautiful expression of that reality of how trying to use jnana to think that you can understand reality is foolish, whereas using, and he was a siddha himself. He could he and his brothers and sister had all kinds of siddhis, but he was also a great bhakta of his brother, who was his guru, Nivrittinath. And Nivrittinath's guru was Gaininath. And Gaininath's guru, in fact, Gaininath was actually created as a small doll, and Gorakhnath accidentally brought him to life. So Gaininath's guru was Gorakhnath. Gorakhnath's guru was Machendranath, and Machendranath's guru was Guru Dattatreya. So the more I spent learning about all of this, the more there was to know, and the more paths there were to follow. And I was, even though Vimalanandaji would not describe himself as a member of the Sampradaya of Kinaram, I have still gone many times to the Kring Kund in Varanasi. And I was very fortunate once to have darshan of Baba Bhagawan Ram, who was in the lineage of Baba Kinaram. And there were many reasons why I appreciated Baba Bhagawan Ram. Number one is he had a great hawa. He had a very powerful presence to him. But also, his philosophy was, and the first time I went to, I will be honest, the first time I went to the Kinaram Sthal in Benares, it was 1984. So I walked in, and there were a couple of Aghoris who had drunk so much they were lying passed out. There was a tiger skin that was kind of moth-eaten. Thank God the dhuni was still functioning. And the hawa of the place was great, because have you been there?
Yes.
Yeah. So did you ever go there when the tree was there that was full of bats?
Maybe
Yeah.
at night.
No. The sad thing is that there used to be, and the story is that, I can't remember his name, but it was one of the shishyas of Baba Kinaram, went up into some very peculiar kind of samadhi once. And when he came down, all of these bats showed up. And for up until, I would say 15 years ago, might have been 20 years ago, you could walk in and the tree was totally full of bats. What happened was they started building the place up too much. You could directly draw water out of the kund that Kinaramji took the water from to cure the dancer who had leprosy. Then they covered it up, and you had to get it from a tap. Now you can't even get it from there anymore. But back at that time, the Kinaram Sthal was if not deserted, then there was an air there that people were pretending they were like Kinaram, but maybe not following in his footsteps quite the way they should have. But so what Baba Kinaram said was, in the past, what were really Gora things? Going to the smashan, okay, that's Gora. And, working with Nasha, that's Gora. But we're seeing that people are not, they're not getting the proper attitude to understand just how Gora these things are. So he said, what is really Gora? Then he thought, well, getting leprosy is definitely not good. And everyone is afraid of getting leprosy. So for everybody, that's Gora. So he created a hospital for lepers on Gangaji ka us par, on the other side. And of course, that they say that if you die in Kashi, people say everybody who dies in Kashi will be saved by Bhagavan Shankar.
Gets moksha.
That may or may not be the case. I'm sure a lot of people do. Everybody?
Debatable.
Debatable, exactly. But what they also say is Uspar, on the other side of Gangaji, if you die, you will be reborn as a donkey.
Oh.
And of course, that's why Kabirji made it a point to, when he was about to pass on, he said, no, I must die over there just to show everybody that this is a stupid idea. So Baba Bhagavan Ramji went to Parao, which is on the other side of Gangaji, and established a hospital for taking care of patients of leprosy. And he said, this, if you want to really do something Gora, something that is really you're going to be thinking that, if I ever got leprosy, this would be a terrible thing. And it's not easy to catch leprosy, but you can do it. So he said, if you want to really follow the path of Aghora right now, this is one way you can do it. You can come here and serve these lepers and expose yourself to something that is extremely terrible and could definitely kill you in a very unpleasant way. So I definitely appreciate that kind of attitude. And that was Vimalanandaji's attitude also. There's a famous Vedantic text called the Tripura Rahasya. And I read somebody, Ramana Maharshi requested one of his devotees to translate it into English. So I read it very early on, like in 74, 75. And among other things, the Tripura Rahasya says very clearly, look around you. Where do you not see the fire that is burning down everything that is created? Everything that is created is going to be resolved into that fire. So this is what Vimalananda used to say also. If the world itself, everyone you look at, effectively speaking, is already dead. And the entire world that we're in is one big smashan. You don't think of it that way because the fire is very small. It's in each and every cell, and it's burning very slowly. But if you look at it from the point of view of the devatas or the rishis, because one day for a devata is 400 years for a human being. If you look at it from the point of view of a rishi or a devata, well, humans are like insects. We are born, we're around for a while, and we collapse, and then new things happen. So there's the what is really Ghora is being stuck in this situation where you were obligated to keep taking birth and trying to find your way through your karmas and trying to position yourself so that at the time you pass on, you will not get any more stuck than you already are. So he would say that's really Ghora, and what's most Ghora for you are the karmas that have brought you here in the first place. Because you don't get born here if you have done a bunch of good karmas. You get born in some other loka somewhere. If you've done a bunch of not so good karmas, that's when you end up here. And the avatars, they have to grab hold of a bunch of bad karmas from somebody else in order to have enough. It's like if you've ever, I once decided that I needed to get a scuba diving certificate. So in order to do that, you have to wear weights on your body in order to be able to sink down far enough in order to actually get into the water. So the karmas cause us to sink down. And those karmas are terrifying because it's very easy to get fasad, to get stuck in this world because things are very attractive. Especially nowadays, because we're in the Gora Kali Yuga, when everything is very, very attractive. In fact, when akarshana is in everybody's pocket and people are spending their time, all of their prana, because where your attention goes, your prana goes, all of the prana is being sucked into this artificial astral world that is the internet. So how that's going to work out, we'll soon find out.